Hello, everyone. Today, this is Doc Harmony. I'm so excited. Another great interview with one of my wonderful friends, and she happens to be a queen. So, she is from the Queen Circle, as you've heard me talk a lot about before. And so, Laura is joining me today because I just love the work that she does. First of all, I love her, and I think she's absolutely amazing. She's fantastic. And what area? You're up in the Lake Lanier area, or am I totally, completely wrong?
No, you're close. Cumming, Georgia, close to Lake Lanier.
Fantastic. So the Cumming area, you all have a gem up there. You have a jewel. And so what Laura does is craniosacral therapy. And I just love this work. So I am not an expert, so I'm not even going to talk about it because I'm sure I would just butcher it and not give it the credit that is due to it. And I would love for Laura to share with us first a little background, how you got interested in craniosacral, and then we'll jump into what is craniosacral therapy and why probably everybody needs it.
Great. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with everybody. So I got interested in craniosacral therapy. The first time I was introduced was back in 2007. It was, I'm a physical therapist, and I've been working with special needs children for 25 years. And so there was an in-service at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and I was exposed to it. And at that time, I thought it was a little weird. It wasn't for me because it didn't seem very clinical. And then circle back around, about 6 years ago, I was working with a little boy that had a lot of orthopedic problems from a genetic issue he had. And one day I went to work with him, and I noticed how different he felt. He could move. He wasn't as restricted in his movement. And I asked the mom, I said, "What's different?" And she says, "Oh, we went to have craniosacral therapy yesterday." And so it came back around, and I was like, wow. And I decided to explore it because of the differences in how well he could move. And I signed up actually for the first class right after that. And after I took the class, it's like I drank the Kool-Aid. I was sold.
So real quick, what were some of those differences? Do you remember? Like, what could he not do, and then what could he do? Because I think it's important to share these miracles.
Yes. So he had a significant spinal deformity he was born with scoliosis.
Oh, wow.
And as part of that, he had to wear a trunk brace a lot to kind of stabilize and try to correct for it. And so he got really stiff through his trunk. And I'd come in and try to help him move, and he was just kind of stuck. And I noticed after the craniosacral therapy, it was like, oh my goodness, he could rotate a little bit.
Wow.
And he was a lot more flexible and could move. And I'm like, what is happening? And come to find out, it was a lot of myofascial release work that the craniosacral therapist had done with him. But it was noticeably different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty phenomenal, right? So we're told, oh, nothing can do, you can't do anything, life is gonna have to be that way. And then poof, you show up with this craniosacral. Now, from what I understand, this is really light touchy, like you wouldn't think it would do anything. Is that like kind of the assumption? You're like, really?
Yeah.
What are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. I had it once and I was like, did you even touch me? Or because I'm used to the chiropractor crack, and I love my chiropractor. All my babies went to chiropractor 10 minutes within being born, right? Something like that. So go ahead and tell us about how this craniosacral is and everything from the differences of it, weirdness, to how it's really showing up and have an effect on our bodies.
Yeah. So the thing that I liked about it when I went to class is they teach us to use very light touch, like 5 grams. We'll kind of like sandwich different areas of the body with our hands. And they talked about the electrical energy that flows between our hands. But what was nice about it was that their theory is less is more. That if you push really hard into the body, it creates resistance. And then you have to get past the resistance to have anything move. But if you touch very lightly, it doesn't create resistance, and things will start to move faster and just like glide because you're not creating resistance to the movement. The analogy they gave was if you had a boat in the water on a lake off of a dock and it had a rope on it, you could grab the rope and you could pull really hard using a lot of energy to get the boat in against the weight of the boat, the resistance of the water in the boat and the rope. Or you could take one finger and hold the rope and just gently pull it towards you, and it will eventually glide across the water without all that resistance. So the idea is if we don't create resistance, things can move better. And the other thing is they talked about that kind of touch goes into the reticular activating system of the brain and allows us to access like the limbic system and emotion too. So, but the guy who created it was a natural healer. He was an osteopath. And as part of his work, he got invited to help assist with a surgery where they opened up the back of someone's cranium and neck. Yeah. And he observed that there was movement, like a flow happening. And he's like, wow, that's interesting. What is that? And he later determined it was craniosacral fluid. Pulsing up and down through the spinal cord, dural tube. And then he did a lot of dissections, where he looked at the cranium and the sutures and determined that he felt like there was movement in the sutures, even though that we've all determined, no, they harden and they're stuck. He said, no, there's actually movement in there. And that you could, with light touch, actually move the cranial bones and also all the fascia that's attached underneath the bones.
Oh, wow.
Almost in a sense, give the brain a massage through the cranial bones. And I'm all the way down the dural tube to the sacrum.
And I really get that because craniosacral fluid is so incredibly important, that rotation of it, right? That shows up in the Kundalini energy, which is just ancient, which shows up then, in our conversations about, I'm having a blank, meridian pathways, chakras, and then all that energy flow. And we even see that with ear candles, right? Really stimulating all that, the eustachian sinuses and lymphs to naturally open up, dilate, because we want all that fluid moving. It's when it's stagnant and holding still that there's some really major problems that can show up. So in regards to, and I love that it all ties in, right? It just all ties in. We can just take it back to spiritual ancient times and we can just link it in. And what a miracle, how amazing that the guy who invented it, was actually able to see and not just witness it, but able to comprehend and understand what he was seeing, such that he could then apply, this gentle touch, which I'm sure works a lot better for children. Well, and probably most of us adults. So what are your prime candidates? I know you specialize in working with children, correct? That have, I don't even want to assume, but yes, I want to cover that. But I think that the scope is more expansive. Who else would be a candidate for this work and why?
So everybody's a candidate, all ages, because it's gentle and non-invasive. Can't really do any harm, unless we have a few precautions that we have to pay. If somebody has increased cranial pressure, we're not going to do it. But it's excellent for people with headaches, and it just, you can release so many restrictions. The whole idea is to decompress and release restrictions so the body can work better naturally on its own. And So John Upledger is the osteopath that created it, and he talked a lot about the inner physician. And he felt like that each of us had an inner physician, and that inner physician knows what our body needs at any point in time. And so somebody might come to him with a headache, but he tuned in to his inner physician and their inner physician, and it said, touch my sacrum. Oh. So he would touch the sacrum and release something there that may have an impact all the way up into the cranium and release the headache. So, but it was interesting how you would think that he would go straight to the head, but he would tune in to what the body told him, or the inner physician of that person. So there was some intuitive awareness and some also feeling the body and kind of figuring out where the need is. And then once you release one thing, then something else may show up. It's fascinating how it works.
So now does anybody, so going back to, so everybody can do this, but what is the most, so kind of like your chiropractic, or would it replace chiropractic, or is it on the same level?
So it's considered body work. So we're in the same line with chiropractors. In the classes I've been to, we've had a few chiropractors, we've had acupuncturists come, a lot of massage therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, because you do need a license to touch in order to practice. But it benefits everybody. I've seen, like with the children, I'm working with misshapen heads, tongue ties, birth trauma, things like that. The mothers have got, a lot of things going on from the pregnancy and delivery. They have some birth trauma too. But it's really for almost anything that ails you, that you're having consistent issues with, that you can't find another solution. This was interesting. I even had a little boy come to see me. The parents were trying to avoid a surgery because his testicles kept retracting. That's something I've never dealt with in physical therapy before. And, I was able to help release some of the tissues and stuff. I never heard for sure if they avoided surgery, but they, he came to see me 3 or 4 times, and it was looking better when he was here. So hopefully it continued. But, it's wild. It could be almost anything that's a chronic condition that's bothering you.
So what would be like for adults? So for children, it sounds like there's a whole wide variety of nuances, whether it's congenital issues or birth traumas, which, really in theory, I think all of us squishing through that 10 centimeters, that's traumatic, right? And, what would are the top 3 things that adults come to have this body work?
So, headaches, I think, is number one.
Yeah.
We see a lot of that with headaches. TMJ, which contributes to headaches. Yeah. Any kind of like scoliosis or problems, with the spinal cord, or the spine. We get people, chronic pain. I had a young lady come in, her right hip has been bothering her ever since a car accident. And when we worked together, all of a sudden she realized it might be related to some unfinished business with the boyfriend she was on her way to see when she got into the car accident.
Right.
So sometimes, who knows, right? The body knows. But, and I was trying to, I haven't done as many.
Let's really acknowledge that, it's one thing to go, and I love my chiropractors, this is not, but with this type of body work, and let me back up for a second. Our bodies store our emotions, right? Like one of the worst things you could do in abuse is, hit a child, But when you hit a child at the same time that you're name calling a child, it's as if you're pounding that into them. So here's this woman on her way, to maybe not have a great conversation with her boyfriend, and she gets in a car wreck. So it really just pounds it in, literally, into the body. And so what you're saying, and I believe you, I've seen this, where as this work is, the body's relaxing, the body's letting go. That's the easy part, right? That's the easy part. It's that letting go of the anger or the fear or the doubts or the judgments and all of that our body is holding so tightly that it causes a headache, a migraine, or a hip pain. What is your thoughts on that?
Yes, exactly. So Dr. John talked about what he called energy cysts being held in the body. He called them energy cysts. And it's basically wherever trauma has gotten stuck in the body and not released. And we don't normally think about it as being in our body. We think of it as being in our minds. For example, I was in class and one of the teachers did a demonstration with a young lady who had pain in her, right where her ovary would be on the right side. Mm. And she'd actually had her ovary removed, but she still had pain there. Mm. And during a demonstration in class, she found out it was because she was angry with her mother about something that had happened many years before. And it's because she was still having pain, even though she'd had her ovary removed. Mm-hmm. So it was something stuck in there.
Absolutely. And you know who did a great job of that? I would love to bring her in. She's deceased, but Louise Hayes, right? In her book with her affirmations, and the one column had the ailment, the second column had what the problem was stemming from, and what the third problem was, what the affirmation was to counter that, right? And so I can imagine with your body work, if you knew what that, for example, liver is directly related, anger, and especially anger with father. So, right. And so if somebody has this achy liver, but they're not an alcoholic, for example, what's going on? They could maybe do this work and at the same time affirm positively, how powerful mixing these modalities can be. But yes, Louise Hayes did a champion of a job with getting us to acknowledge and recognize the correlation between emotion, the emotional issue, and the physical at the same time. So, yeah.
I know there's another book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard numerous times the issues are in the tissues.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's a great one. Yeah.
And but it is complementary. Like whenever I work with someone and some emotion comes up or a past memory, that they need to process, I usually do recommend they go see a professional counselor. I'm not a professional counselor, but it brings things to the awareness, that maybe had not been in their awareness before, that help.
Well, and sometimes don't you think, if we're stuck in pain, a person stuck in pain, it's really hard. You're like, I don't have time to do. I can't deal with that, right? Because you're in pain, especially chronic pain. Oh my gosh, how exhausting. Mm-hmm. So, well, what do you have, like one top story, like one favorite, like, oh my God, what would that be?
This is interesting. I was trying to think of which one. I haven't been practicing very long. I had a friend that I worked on. She came to see me and she was having chronic headaches and TMJ and some respiratory problems. And I worked on her, and my intuition, her inner physician, told me to hold her sacrum. Mm. And when I held her sacrum, she told me, she says, oh my gosh, she said, my sacrum has bothered me for so long. And she says, I've just wanted somebody to stand on it. How did you know to touch me there?
Oh, wow.
And as I did, just a lot of things released for her. She'd had a lot of hip problems and hip pain. And I just felt it just gently just release, release, release. And afterwards, she said she had a much easier time of walking. No emotion came out with that one, but so it can help with alignment issues as well. But, the only other thing I had happen that was shocking was I discovered a brain tumor in a 4-month-old infant.
Oh my gosh. Tell me about that. Okay. The only other thing I just discovered a brain. Come on, Laura. What's that about?
Well, he came to me the first time for what he thought was a tongue tie issue.
Right.
And I worked with him. And when the parents came back the next time, they told me he'd been diagnosed with brachial plexus on the left shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, that's weird because I didn't document anything like that. Brachial plexus is where the nerves have gotten damaged under the arms, usually during delivery, causing some paralysis in the arms. And it's usually one-sided. But as I was working with the child, I noticed the other arm wasn't moving properly either. And I'm like, I didn't see any of this early on. This is a big change. Something's going on. And he had some reflexes. Startle reflex was extreme, severe. He was uncomfortable. And I sent him to the emergency room, and they found out he had a spinal tumor or a brain tumor. Yeah, he's getting treatment now, but I still work with the same child. But yeah, that was not a happy thing to find.
Yeah, but we want to find these things early, not too late. Oh my gosh, what a miracle. That is such a blessing. Yeah. So wow, that is just so amazing. I'm just so impressed with all your work. And I would love for everyone to know how to get in contact with you. I don't know if you have a website, any details. How can people get in contact with you so that they can inquire into more?
Okay. I've set up a website. It's tenderhearttherapy.com. Okay. And my email and all my information is available there. Okay. It's primarily, directed towards working with infants, but I'm expanding now into working with mothers and people working with fertility and things like that as well. If they wanted to find a practitioner closer to where they live, or they could try the Upledger Institute, UPLEDGER Institute. And they have a big database of providers that work with, everybody. And it's, we're taught that it's kind of like our gift to the world to set people free, So, yeah, there's quite a few people, and hopefully you can find somebody closer to you if you want to pursue this kind of care.
Well, I think it's wonderful. I think everybody in Swanee, Georgia should come and see you. And I think that it would just be so healing. It would just totally transform that whole neighborhood. Not even a neighborhood. It's huge now, isn't it? Used to be like, is anybody here in Swanee, Georgia? Or Cumming, Georgia. And now it's like huge and overpopulated.
It is. Very much so. It's really exploded.
I appreciate you sharing with us. Is there anything else that we left out or didn't?
No. I can't think of anything, but thank you so much for the opportunity. I just love working with you, and anything and everything that you bring is fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope everybody out there, as you know, I am Doc Harmony. This is Laura Adams, and healthy energy is an amazing life. Ciao.